I think the topic is absolutely essential for the understanding of the world we'll happen to live in. We are talking about migration flows. We're talking about migration as a big challenge of this world of ours. And let me tell you, I think it is actually main focal point of the world of the present day, to start up just recognizing that it's an extremely complicated, complex issue. That's the way we used to approach it in Spain. Whenever we're given the chance to make a short remark, a short comment, whatever, on the migration issue, the first thing that comes up to your mind is just to start up by saying, it's so complicated. It doesn't mean that we may indulge into paralysis, that we may be paralyzed by the perplexity of the complexity of the thing. We are forced somehow to respond. But the first thing we need to get the proper response is to understand the very complexity of the issue, which means that we have to analyze that first we are facing migration of historical magnitude, unprecedented scale, never happened to this large scale ever before in the history of mankind. The second is that for the first time in history, migration flows are enjoying a truly planetary scale, that there is no room that we can evade it, there is no room that we can escape from it. And third, there is a phenomenon of multifactorial composition. There is not only one key in order to explain what's going on here. We need to resort to the whole array of factors that are influential in explaining the whole picture if we want to make it right. So, having understood that the unprecedented proportion, the planetary scale and the multifactorial composition of the whole phenomenon is demanding the best of our abilities and the best of our capacities to get the proper response, the first thing is to get clear what we should not do about it, what we cannot indulge to do about it, and is to acknowledge that if it's not sure, we do not know for certain what we should do about it. There is one thing sure, there is one thing for sure, and it is what we should not do about it. And it is indulging in demagogy and the simplification of the problem. So it means a whole lot of energy in order to face and stand up before demagogy, before the simplification, before simplistic answers. So we have to face and stand up against demagogy and against the stimulation of anxiety and negative responses, which are so easy to raise when it comes to these kind of issues. Then there comes a time for trying to do something about it. And the Spanish government has tried to set up a whole comprehensive strategy in order to face this newborn phenomenon. But all of a sudden, we've been taken by surprise by the fact that Spain has gotten richer, prosperous. It's become an active part of the European Union, so it's become an active part of a block of prosperity and welfare, which is a promised land for so many in despair all around the world. So all of a sudden, Spain has turned out to be an immigrational society. We've been receiving immigrants by tons for the last 10 years, no more than that. But the change that this factor has brought about to the Spanish social fabric, the Spanish social landscape, has been dramatic, has been breathtaking, astonishing. The fact of the matter is that we were 39 million people for almost 25 years, just blocked and trapped in the lowest birth rate in the whole of the planet, and then in just 8 years we've turned out to be 45 million people just for the sake of receiving immigrants by tongues. Millions of immigrants just in a 10 years range. So the impact of this factor upon the Spanish social fabric has been undeniable. We need to set up a whole strategy. We have done that in 3 pillars. The first one has been, of course, telling the difference between migration and anything else, which means telling the difference between migration and public safety. There is also a criminal side, which involves the activity of criminal organizations at an international scale that have to be tackled at the very core, at the very original point where they stem from. That is why we have decided to tackle, as a first pillar of our strategy, being offensive and aggressive against international mafia, which are trafficking with human beings. The second pillar would be trying to incorporate this contribution to our standards of welfare and economic growth and prosperity, paying respect with the fundamental rights involved in every human being, no matter the origin, no matter the race, no matter the gender, no matter the language, no matter the creed, no matter whatever. We're talking about human beings here that are to be respected in their dignity, in their fundamental rights, which is a major priority for the Spanish government. I represent the Canary Islands in Parliament, which is an archipelago, which is a region in Spain which is so much stressed by the fact that we have been receiving sub-Saharan Africans who try their best to set food on our shores, on our beaches, on a day-to-day basis. They come at least 100, 150 on a day-to-day basis. And of course, they put a lot of pressure on our social services. They put a lot of pressure on our healthcare system. We try to keep alert on ourselves in order to understand and realize that it is always about human beings we're talking of here. It is always of human beings we're dealing with, because no negative reaction, no anxiety, no fear can be tolerated when it comes to paying respect to the fundamental rights involved. And this is a whole lot of pressure for a society with limited resources, as all of societies are. The third pillar would be the necessity of understanding that if we are to make a difference, somehow it shall come with aid for development being increased in the most dramatic way thinkable. This is the self-demand that the Spanish government has imposed to itself. We are increasing our aid for development, our aid for cooperation with developing countries on a 30% basis year per year. By now, we have increased our budgetary resources devoted to aid for development by 30%. And more than that, we're trying to push forward this very same agenda within the European Union. Spain is the newcomer to the challenge of immigration, but the fact of the matter is that Spain is taking the leadership within the European Union institutions in order to put this migration challenge within the agenda. We're pushing forward within the so-called Council of Ministers of Justice and Home Affairs. It is the initiative and the leadership of Prime Minister President Zapatero that has put migration within the budgetary goals of the European Union. A new budget devoted to migration issues has been set forth by the European Union for the first time in history, following an initiative that has been made in the last European summit by President Zapatero, the summit that put an end to the blockade of the so-called budgetary perspectives and financial perspectives within the European Union with the occasion of the UK presidency. So we are pushing forward in order to take the leadership, being the newcomers in this kind of a challenge, but just on the understanding that there is no way we can handle it. There is no way, there is no hope that we are to make a difference if we do it only on a national basis, on the nation-state basis. That there's no way we can do about it. If we are to make a difference, we are to cooperate. We are to work with each other. We are to collaborate. We are to set up a comprehensive strategy that has to be supranational. Of course, that is the case of the European Union, but not only. It's also the challenge of the whole of the international community, comprising also the important experience that the United States has accumulated, having undergone this pressure for so long and having re-emerged so strongly in the last 10 years here in the United States, as is the case by now. It is not only of managing flows, migrational flows we're talking about here. It is also of identity in an open, pluralistic society. Spain has always been a plural identity country. It's a pluricultural, multilingual, some say multinational society. Spain is a complex society in itself. It has always been in history, but it's getting more and more so because of immigration, of course. It is not only of plurilingual, pluricultural issues we're talking here, it is also of new phenomena as multi-creed, multi-religious influences. We're dealing here for the first time in many centuries. Spain for centuries has remained a homogeneously single religion society. It has always been a Catholic society. But the fact of the matter is that in a very short period of time, we're receiving the impact of tons, millions of Muslim-origined human beings, which are bound to bring about an increasing religious pluralism, which is also to affect the self of identity, self-esteem and self-appreciation of the whole of the Spanish social fabric. That is a major challenge that has to be tackled smoothly, smartly, intelligently enough, with cautiousness and with far-sighted perspective. That is a major challenge, and it takes, in my understanding, a sense of responsibility and accountability on the side of public authorities. So my final comment will be, there is no room, no space at all for demagogy, for simplistic, jingoistic, egoistic, negative reactions. If we are to live in this world, we are to learn to live with change, openness, and a path of change that is going to bring about new challenges that need not to be responded with fear or anxiety, but with hope and far-sighted perspective, working for a better planet and a better place which is to be inherited by our descendants. Thank you so much.